Welcome to The Craft. I'm your host, May Globus. This podcast is a collection of intimate conversations on artistry, mastery, and life with talented, passionately curious creatives and entrepreneurs. Most are dear friends, some are those I've admired from afar. I hope you enjoy these conversations, this exploration of the humanity that connects all of us, as much as I do having them. Thank you for being here and for listening. This episode is sponsored by Happy Fox Health, a natural supplement brand focused on sea moss, a marine algae that has 92 out of 102 essential nutrients that your body needs to thrive and regenerate. I've used a number of their products and found it's really given me clarity of mind. Visit happyfoxhealth.com and use promo code THECRAFT for an exclusive 15 to 20% discount off your first product purchase. As a number of you know, I'm also a certified sound therapy practitioner and founder of Oto Healing, a sound therapy studio and practice. Sound has been a healing modality through many cultures for thousands of years. Oto's approach to sound is rooted in both art and science, the art being the history of sound, the science being quantum physics, biology, brainwave states, and more. All listeners of the show get 15% off their first private 1-hour session. Visit otohealing.com to book yours now. Zach Bulick is a genuinely kind and open spirit, underpinned by an intuitive sharpness that unearths itself once in conversation with him. The longtime designer has forged a career in a number of industries, from institutions and nonprofits to agencies Burnkit, Domain 7, and then global firm Versett, where he's currently a designer, facilitator, and strategy lead. Born in Dallas, Texas, he's the only child of an academic father and a fun, nurturing mother. His family soon moved to British Columbia, settling in Langley, where his father was the vice president of student life at Trinity Western University. Surrounded by university students and essentially growing up on campus and in dorms, Zach spent his childhood here until he was 13 years old, when the family went stateside back to Dallas-Fort Worth. He returned to Vancouver for university, and because somehow it always felt like home. Once back in the Pacific Northwest, he began to immerse himself deeper into the world of design thinking and human-centered design. In this conversation, we explore his childhood in both the States and Canada, his pursuit of design in university and why he felt drawn to it, a short chapter living in Wales in the UK, how his mentors have touched his life in different ways, what design thinking means and putting humans back at the center of design experiences, things he's been pondering around purpose and impact since a recent birthday, emerging trends and hot topics in design, learning to create space for oneself, and more. Please enjoy this gentle, introspective conversation with the wonderful and utterly delightful Zach Bulick. Zach Bulick, welcome to The Craft.
Thanks for having me.
I know. I'm honored that you're here.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes. I mean, you and I have met very recently through our mutual friend Amanda Lee Smith, who was like, you need to meet Zach. And so I'm so glad that I did.
Oh, Amanda is like the ultimate people champion. So yeah, I feel honored, but she's done the same for me, May. So it's great to meet you.
Yeah, so good. And I enjoyed our conversation that we had the first time we met and the subsequent ones. So I'd love to keep on diving deep with you.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's go all the way back to Texas, where you were born, in Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas, Texas, one of the hottest days in August of 1985, just down the street from the Dr. Pepper factory at Baylor Hospital. And I mean, I haven't spent a ton of time in Texas, but I definitely like to pull the Texas card every once in a while because, I don't know, it gives a bit of like swagger within Canada, which, I don't know, it's fun. And then you get to throw out like Texas slang and words and...
Do you do it? Accent?
Oh, not consistently. When I'm actually spending some time with my family, I'll say y'all. I mean, y'all, let's just agree. Y'all is one of the best words ever invented in the English language. But y'all, there's a bit of a drawl. It's like, hey everyone, how's it going? And like you just really lean into it.
You just draw out certain vowels.
Super long A's. Everything kind of blends together. You're having like chicken fried steak and biscuits and gravy and getting like all of the good Southern food when you're down there. And then you throw in out words like janky and cattywampus and like it's nothing.
What does the second one mean that you just said?
Cattywampus, it's like, wow, my uncle ran into the fence and now it's all cattywampus. It feels very interchangeable with janky.
Yeah.
But probably, I don't know. I think of a slinky that gets super tangled up, and it's all cattywampus, and
Yeah.
there's no
It's
hope
kind of
to
bent
repair.
out of shape.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to use that word, but I also feel like it's wrong because I'm not from Texas.
Yeah, if there's no other takeaway from this, it's like you've learned 2 words today: janky and cattywampus.
Janky, I do like.
Yeah.
I've used that one. Yeah. Yeah. So then you moved to Langley after Texas
Yeah.
until you were 13.
Langley, BC, Fraser Valley. I grew up there when it was still fields, and then all of a sudden the Willowbrook Mall. But yeah, it's changed so much. But yeah, grew up in Langley for most of the 90s, and still have a lot of friends out there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And your dad, the reason why you went back was because your dad was working at Trinity, yeah?
Yeah, he was the VP of Student Life at Trinity Western University, and being like growing up on a university campus essentially for 13 years, and being an only child, but also surrounded by a ton of university students. So felt like I had a lot of like brothers and sisters, and spent a lot of time in the dorms. Gave a presentation to an early education class when I was 7 on Play-Doh, like the dough, not the philosopher. And yeah, got to be part of a lot of like childhood psychology studies. But yeah, also had a lot of fun. It was fun to grow up on a university campus.
And what was your dad like, and your mom? What are your parents like?
Oh, my parents are great. I feel like I've been gifted with such fun and generous parents. My mom is like the consummate host. She makes everyone around her feel so welcome and cared for. She asks really good questions, and just always had created like a space that felt safe for people to kind of come and just relax and kind of be doted on a little bit. But we just always had a lot of life in our house growing up, a lot of like university students in and out of our doors. And also my mom's really fun. She, one of like my favorite memories growing up was, we're on like my Norco bike, and she's sitting on the seat and I'm sitting on her lap. And, you know, I'm like on a bike and I'm cool and I'm, 8 or something like that. But she sees this big hill and she's like, let's go down it. And I was like, I don't know about this. But I like hop on her lap, and she doesn't even touch the pedals, just lets her legs like fly out in front of the bike and is just screaming, wee. And like, meanwhile, like I'm actually thinking we're going to die. But yeah, she's always been fun and adventurous. And my dad is, my dad was like the first person in his family to go get a degree, and like then subsequently went and did his master's and also did a doctorate. He's really well read. He has a ton of books in his office, and he's a bit quieter. He's very funny. Once he gets going, he really gets going. But we would always kind of connect, going for like walks at night, like walking our dog, and get to like step into some of these like deeper life conversations along the way. So it's been fun to continue that pattern even as I've gotten older, and I'll still go home, walk the dog with him, and like catch up on life, and we'll have wonderings about the universe and ask big questions together.
I love that. It's like your own little ritual.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and it shows up in different ways for each parent, right? Me and my dad will go for a walk, and then me and my mom will get into like a good drive, and it's like something will start to spark when we're driving or we're doing an activity together, and that's where we can kind of like unpack life.
Yeah. That's really special to have that with your parents.
Yeah,
Like those deep conversations, I mean.
yeah, it's nice, and it feels I don't know, for an only child, it's like it's just us. We don't have a ton of extended family. It's me and them, and it's always been that way. Um, so I know that not everyone has has great relationships with their parents. So um, I just feel really lucky because they're awesome. They're very generous, and I think too, I never found. Sometimes people mark their relationship with their family in terms of what they were allowed or not allowed to do. And I think something that always stood out to me was I always felt very trusted and respected. And I mean, I probably needed more rules at times, but there was just so much mutual respect and mutual care for one another that, I mean, I was a pretty chill kid, and it's like, oh, if you're home on time or whatnot, but it definitely wasn't like a dogmatic or overly prescribed household.
Sounds like they didn't restrict you too much in thought and what you were just allowed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was also happy to go with the flow a little bit too. I'm very like a happy-go-lucky person, so I also wasn't pushing major boundaries there, but yeah.
Mm. And you said that you were a chill child. Like, tell me more about you as a child and a
Uh,
teen.
yeah, actually, no, maybe chill's not the right word. Um, as a child, actually, no, I was totally a terror as a kid. Uh, I had so much energy, and I would run around, and I was always getting into mischief. And um, I don't know, all I wanted in elementary school was a trampoline, and I never had one. So like, I made strategic friendships with people that had trampolines, and like that was a big mission. Um, you know, getting older, you upgrade to like, okay, I play GoldenEye on N64, and that like took up 4 years of my life with all of the sleepovers and whatnot. Um, and then yeah, like moving into high school was relatively chill. By the time we moved, um, but by the time I was in junior high and high school, we'd actually moved back to Texas, which was a really big shift. Moving from all your friends that you'd gone to, pre-K, kindergarten with, all of elementary school, and then completely different city, different context. You can't get much more different than the Pacific Northwest uh, and Arlington, Texas.
Mm.
Um, so I didn't have like any streak of rebellion, but it was just a much harder time, and I think collectively our family found it a harder transition than we expected. So there was both some bonding over that, but also some like um, kind of all grieving in our own way for the first while that we were there.
Mm. Hmm. If you were going to speak more about the transition,
Mm-hmm.
what were some of the glaringly like obvious differences for you
Um,
that affected you?
yeah, I think I I went to a pretty small junior high and elementary school in Langley, um, with a ton of like parent involvement, and like these were people that we did life together with. Going to Texas, I just remember going to this like giant junior high. There's security guards everywhere, or not everywhere, but there's a few security guards. Um, it definitely felt like a more acute transition into like stereotypical American high school. Um, girls would walk by the security guard, and like as a joke, they would drop their purse and say, "Oh shit, my crack," and
Okay.
like make like jokes. Um, there were maybe not gangs, but there are definitely like groups of kids that um, were aggressive towards other groups. You step into the cafeteria, and it felt so much like a pop culture movie where, oh, here's where the jocks are, here's where the goths are, here's like how everyone splits up. And I hadn't experienced that before, and that just felt so just strange that there was so much distance from everyone. But um, but also, um, I think it just felt like such a grown up environment and a bit more like aggression. Like maybe this would have happened if I was in Canada too, if I was in Langley, but I think it probably would have, had a bit more, um, relationships going into it. But I'm like the new guy in a giant school um, yeah, just I didn't really know how to find myself like integrating into that well initially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that must have felt really tough.
Yeah, it was strange. It was a lot to adapt to. Um, I think too, uh, like you're navigating all of this, you're kind of navigating it alone. You're trying to like find friends. And I remember when I first moved there, um, I probably wasn't the best person to be friends with because like I was processing my own frustration that we had moved and probably wasn't as like fun or as receptive to friends as I would have normally been. But I remember, especially for that first year, I basically like hung out with people that I don't even think they wanted me to hang out with them. It was just like, you won't, you won't tell me to go away, so I'm just gonna sit in close proximity to you, and you like somewhat feel safe.
Mm.
But especially at that junior high, I didn't develop like deep friendships there, and it wasn't really until I got into high school in like ninth grade and 10th grade where it really felt like I had gotten to a place of developing some core friendships and felt really settled into high school life.
Mm. And do you still talk to those high school friends now?
Not like directly. A lot. I mean, I'll keep up with them and, see what's going on in their lives via Instagram or Facebook. Um, I think as we've kind of like grown and changed, there's probably some pretty big differences in our worldviews,
Mm.
which, hey, there should always be room for conversation. Um, I do remember coming back from university and visiting with like my high school best friend, and and we got into some conversation about guns in America, and I was like, oh my gosh, it just isn't it outrageous? Like um, the gun problem in America. And his response was, I know. It's the Second Amendment. It's our right. And I was like,
Oh,
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 let's like back up that train. We're like on very
yeah.
different pages here. But he just completely misinterpreted it. I was like, uh-huh, uh-huh. I was like, oh yeah, we're like really different.
Mm.
But uh but yeah, I mean, I'd still consider him a friend.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone evolves too, and
Yeah.
yeah, this happens in life. And so, what brought you back to BC? It was going to Trinity Western,
Yeah.
right? But also, was there something else that was pulling you back here that was much more deeper, like in your soul and your spirit?
Yeah, I think um I mean, the easiest answer is like BC was home. I mean, I felt like when I was in Texas, I was like the Canadian, and that was like the identity. Um, and and that's fine. It's like it didn't matter that I was like born in Texas, but because it's like I deeply resonated with Canada. Like there's so many forming years here. Um, so I think that's what I was really searching for when coming back. I ended up, going back to the university that my dad had worked at for a number of years. I That also felt like home. I spent so much time there growing up. Some of the professors I ended up having um, knew me when I was, a toddler, and would call out, Zach Bulick is in my class. I remember you in diapers, which is what every first year at university wants to have announced to a room of 60 people. Um, but yeah, there was a sense of safety there. There was a sense of kind of like I know this place and familiarity, but maybe a bit of a. But I've been away for a while, so like I don't know, I felt a sense of like comfort and ownership and excitement to be there. And I I think, like, frankly, what drew me to Trinity was all of those relationships with people I'd had growing up. I saw the type of people that they were, the like leaders that they were, and how they showed up in the world. And I, from an early age, really identified. I was like, "There's something distinct here. There's something different," and that really stood out to me. And that's what I wanted to participate into.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. I wanted to go back to something that you said about, always being the Canadian at
Hmm.
your school. It's really funny because all of my family lives in LA,
Yeah.
and they always call me the Canadian too. And I wonder what that is. It's always said with like kind of jokingly, but also like with some dismissiveness.
Yeah. Oh,
It's really
absolutely.
interesting. It's like, oh, the Canadian. It's like, oh, that's so interesting. What makes you say it like that?
Yeah. I mean, they're just envious, obviously. Uh, but it's funny because it wasn't. It actually went both ways, because I remember in elementary school and getting into junior high in Canada, I've had friends and they're like, "Oh, you're the American," because they knew that like I was born in the States. And I remember I remember, in my most dramatic phase thinking like where do I belong? Like it's like the place I was born identifies me as something else, and then the place that I really feel is home is like, well, you're also other here. Um, and I just say dramatic because I'm like, I don't actually need to dwell on that too long. Like I know where home is,
Mm.
and I can like be grounded and find comfort in that. Um, but yeah, I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's like calling out. Um, Maybe there's a difference that they see. Maybe there's some assumptions that they have around
Mm.
what that
Mm-hmm.
means. But it is wrapping up some of the stereotypes about Canadians uh, and imposing them on us, maybe.
Even
Um,
though some of them are so untrue. Like,
oh, oh,
okay,
totally.
you really think that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I was going down to Texas and every second word I was like, "Oh, sorry," then I'm like, "Okay, maybe you can call me out on this." But I was like, "Yeah, I do identify as Canadian, and we're badass. Bring it on."
Hmm. Yeah, you're like, I'm fine with it. So, so when you were at Trinity, there
Mhm.
was nothing really design specific you could take as a program, but you started to enroll in everything that was sort of design related while also working in communications in the communications department.
Mhm.
Tell me about that whole journey.
Yeah, from actually a mentor in high school, who was a graphic designer. He he just like introduced me to like the creative suite, and I got my first illegal copy of Illustrator and Photoshop. But from grade 10, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm unlocked on these tools. I'm so excited to create. And I started making logos, and they're nightmares to look at now. Um, Absolutely no accessibility standards. There's so many things wrong with them. But um, but I was just like pumping them out. And I started really ravenously following some designers online. Initially, it was through like a community on Flickr. And I knew acutely that design was what I wanted to pursue, even though at the same time I wanted to, I also knew that I wanted to go to Trinity. I, I remember my first year at Trinity really wanting to pursue design and feeling this tug between um, should I go to an art institute or Emily Carr or like or OCAD or some other school, um, and still feeling drawn and feeling centered on like, okay, I want to stay with Trinity, but if I'm going to stay here, I need to figure out what opportunities I can step into. And I was such a keener even before school started. I emailed Trinity's newspaper. It's called Mars Hill. It's still running today, and it is an awesome group of students. Um, but I emailed the editor at the time and got to meet them in the fall. It turned out to be some like lifelong friends just from that initial meeting. But I think our email exchange was show me some of your work and what kind of bands are you into. And I was very cool at the time, and there was this unknown band called Snow Patrol out of the UK that before international success was like, oh, this is very under the radar, I'm so hip and cool, I'm into like Brit rock that nobody knows about. But that got me in, and I got to work on all of the newspaper issues and eventually be the visual editor. Trinity also, I don't know if they still have it, but they at the time had a yearbook for a university, which as a student leader gave me a budget of around $60,000 to do a custom print project, which
Oh, wow.
I was really excited to take on. But you got to explore all these different print mediums and formats, and it was this, not a class, but it was this opportunity to kind of like run a small business, hire a staff, coordinate timelines with a printer, like work with photographers, work with other creatives on campus. So now they have the SAMC school, which actually has a design degree that you can pursue. But at the time before that was created, this was just like an extracurricular that I got to be involved in. But yeah, any design opportunity, I would step into it and would kind of throw my whole self in.
Yeah. And how long were you there for? Like, did you work there after you were graduated as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there from 2004 to 2009. I took a year off and actually worked or volunteered in the Rhondda Valleys in Wales. I was actually a secondary school, or a teacher's assistant essentially, in a high school. And they had me teaching American football and baseball because I'm from North America and I know those things.
Yeah.
But after I came back, that was during my second year, then carried on until 2009 and ended up working for their communications department, and was like designing different artifacts for the school, and did that until the fall, until I moved from Langley to Vancouver and started my Vancouver life.
I didn't know about Wales. How was that for you? Like, other than teaching these sports?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to know what that year was like.
I think so. That year was after my first year at Trinity and having that wrestle of design school, not design school. I think I just wanted an adventure, and I happen to have some close friends that live in Wales, and they had connections to say, oh, if you want to, you can come stay with us, and then be a teacher's assistant. I helped run an after-school youth drop-in, but I was just outside of. I actually stayed in this small village called Clydach, which is outside of Tonapandy, outside of Cardiff, but in South Wales, and it just was an amazing experience. Got to connect with some lifelong friends, have gone back several times, was best man in a wedding over there with my my best friend Christian. And I think for me, I wasn't trying to necessarily like find myself, but I was definitely in a stage of like, what am I doing with my life? And so why not escape to the UK and spend some time there figuring it out?
That's really cool. Yeah. A year of self-discovery. Why not? Yeah. And then when you got back to Vancouver, that's when you started your freelance career. This is where you interned at Burnkit.
Yeah.
And then you also ended up at the Union Gospel Mission for a while, no?
Yeah. I interned with Burnkit for probably a little over a year. I came in as an internship, and then I helped be an interim studio manager. But Josh Dunford is a friend. He's so gracious, and took on probably someone that had no business of being there, but really gave me like full exposure to agency life, sitting in on client pitches, seeing how the design team was like presenting concepts and ideas. And I look back now and I'm like, oh, wow, you were giving me a lot of opportunities that stretched me and prepared me for the work that I stepped into for years to come, um, which uh, which I think at the time was like, oh, would I have trusted myself to give that task to me? But yeah, that was amazing. Made some really good friends out of that, and then that kind of equipped me to step into this role with UGM. UGM had gone through a rebrand, and kind of being a nonprofit, they had won this work um, as like a donation, so they had a new logo, but outside of that, there weren't any, brand standards or any other collateral or signage. So they basically needed a complete overhaul, and um, their director of development at the time, Janessa Greening, brought me in, and she was like, "Yep, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to give you this opportunity, and eventually we're going to build a team out here because I really want to have a creative team in house to help adapt to what our donors are looking for, provide supports to the downtown East Side community in terms of communication and helping make some of the messaging more accessible to the diverse needs of that group." And yeah, I was there for a little over 3 years, and over the over that 3 years, initially designed everything and was just every single day working through like this asset, this brochure, this poster, this car wrap, and eventually was able to like help build out a team of developers, videographer, writer, and do some really cool editorial work and also brand work.
Mm-hmm. So you like helped really overhaul all of that.
Yeah, I mean, with immense help. Janessa had a vision, and it was really her. And then the person I worked closely with was Jay Stewart. He was my manager, and just the combination of their mentoring, their deep trust in the team, and yeah, I would say they really empowered me to help bring that vision forward, and also inject my vision along the way around like what's going to make a successful team.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I'm listening to you say or picking up are, people who have given you these chances along the way and given you mentorship. And I remember in our last conversation, you had mentioned 3 people in your life that had um, helped you change the course of things. Like they were mentors, and I think you mentioned Kara Pecknold and Chad Falkenberg.
Yeah.
And then Tracy, but I can't remember her last
Tracy
name.
Falk.
That's right,
Yeah.
Tracy Falk.
Yeah. I actually all three of those individuals I had met with as like an informational interview day after I graduated, because being the keener, postgraduate that I was. But yeah, all of them have kind of touched my life in different ways. Tracy, I initially kind of met through Flickr and mutual friends, and she has such a strong aesthetic eye. She is such a like empathetic human. When she met me, I still remember to this day, when she met me, she was wearing like knit half cut gloves where her like fingers were exposed, but she grasped my one hand with both of her hands, between both of her hands. And it stood out to me as just this powerful like moment of connection with her. And I was like, oh, you don't even know me that well, and this feels powerful. But I've learned so much just through connecting with her on a friendship level, but also I had the chance to work with her at Domain 7 as well and see her process, the questions that she asks, the space that she holds for people as they're, critiquing design or trying to understand, the complexity that she's made so beautiful and so simple. Yeah, so Tracy's had a big impact.
Mm.
Um,
May I ask,
yeah.
before you move to the next one, what kind of questions does Tracy ask?
Um, only Tracy can ask those questions, May. Um, no, I think it's maybe not a series of questioning or a line of questioning. It's more the space and the posture that she holds for people who are coming into a design process maybe for the first time and really trying to wrap their head around it. Um, and and just through her experience, being able to acutely, like, actively listen for what is the heart of the thing that we're trying to get at here, because it's not about, making it pop or um, make the logo bigger. There's actually a bigger human problem that we're trying to solve with, creating a website or taking complex information and making it digestible to the end user. Um, so yeah, it's more like the posture she holds and then how she responds to folks in that moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, the second you mentioned was Kara Pecknold, and Kara and I go way back. She actually used to live above our garage in a suite that we had in Langley, and so she's known me for a while. But Kara was the first person to introduce me to the social impact space, how design can really be transformative in people's lives. I had never heard of design thinking before working or learning from Kara, and it was transformative for me because throughout my career, I've moved from a space of graphic design and really getting into like layout and typography and branding and like strong visuals, and more about uh, design methodology and design thinking, and um, really questions around like the human-centered experience, whether that is through a product or through a process. But it was Kara who opened up that door for me initially and really gave me visibility into like, oh my gosh, design can be so much bigger. And I don't want to come in here and be like, oh yeah, design can save the world, because that ship has sailed. No, like that's not what I'm advocating for. But she opened up a way of thinking that I just really resonated with and got so excited by, and to this day is something that I'm still practicing. I'm still stepping into on a regular basis, and I'm having drinks with her on Thursday, and I'm so excited to like learn more from her.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's been I would say like a consistent mentor in my life for the last number of years. Yeah.
And for those listeners who don't know what design thinking is, can you explain?
Oh, that's a whole other podcast. Yeah, where do I want to start with that? I think I'll look at human-centered design, but it's like putting the human at the center of the design process and truly asking and designing for like end user needs and human needs, and trying to take a more holistic approach to that. Recognizing that, of course, there's outcomes that a business is trying to achieve. Of course, there's flows that we're trying to get folks to like walk through or be impacted by, but trying to take a step back and say what truly is going to be like most holistically good for this user and aligns with some of the outcomes that we're trying to achieve as a business. Yeah, but it's also just like it's paying attention. It's paying attention to humans, and it's understanding what their needs are, how we're addressing them, and not just doing that through exclusively behavior evaluation, but it's like, let's talk to people, and doing that through a number of different ways.
Is this what you love most about design?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Like I love people. Like people and design is my Venn diagram. That's the sweet spot for Zach Bulick.
It's your icky guy.
Exactly. I love relationships. I love getting to understand what makes people tick. And then um, I love coming together with folks to be a bit of like that glue to solve that problem or overcome that obstacle to get to the place that we're trying to get to.
And that's what you're doing at Versett now.
Yeah. Versett, um, we're a digital product company. We're global. I work on the North American team, and I'm a strategy lead. And my background in like UX design, in client management, in kind of facilitation, and all of these different things have kind of brought me together to be the space of, oh yeah, I get to be the glue. I get to be the glue that's connecting with users, connecting with our clients, and helping bring out insights that are going to really help our projects succeed. Um, Being the bridge between our product teams who are helping lead some of the overarching product strategy, as well as our design team who is bringing like extreme depth in like the UX space and creating really delightful experiences out of the insights that all of the teams that came before them have offered up to them, and then transforming that into something that truly could be like a transformational product experience.
Mm. And I want to go. This is not about design, but before I forget about it, the last conversation we had, you had said that you just celebrated your 37th birthday,
Yeah,
and and
I'm
you're
old.
really you are not old, but that you're very reflective around this time, and that something had really shifted internally for you. And I'd love to explore
Mhm.
what your feelings are around this shift and what you're reflecting on.
Yeah, I mean, 2022 feels like a bit of level setting for all of us. We're kind of in this post-COVID space. Um, I don't know. I don't know if anyone resonates with this. I found myself in 2021 facing burnout, really struggling with um, everyone being a bit on edge. At the time, I'm helping, lead strategy with a lot of our partnerships at the agency, and um, and it's like we're trying to like get work done while everyone is collectively going through this like significant languishing and um, like being so tired of what the last 2 years had kind of brought. So I came into 2022 already feeling what I'm describing as a bit crispy. So not actively burned out, but definitely crispy from the last little while. And um, with my birthday coming up, it just made me more reflective on what's important in life. Where have I been over the last few years? We all feel like the last couple of years have maybe been stolen from us or have just gone by so quickly. So I find myself asking, what's the impact that I want to be having in the world? What is the contribution? What's next? Not in the sense of, occupation or what I'm doing, but um, where do I want my focus to be? I think I feel so significantly challenged around climate change and our impact on the environment. And I want to be asking the question of how am I participating in some form of renewal, whether that's with people and relationships or the environment or my local community. But it's almost like I'm already doing some things, but I'm just like, oh, this is such a strong desire, and I'm wrestling with what that looks like. I was just reflecting with a friend the other day how, if you'd asked me in my 20s, like, what is Zach doing? I was like, oh, I helped start the tool library. I'm like doing this thing called trade school that's barter-based education, and it's so like had projects on the go and felt really involved. And now I'm a bit like, okay, well, I'm living life. I'm doing community with friends. I'm working, and I want to like be participating in something more.
Mm.
So I'm figuring that out.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like it's okay not to have everything figured out right in the moment and just sort of like marinating in it for a little while and see what comes.
Yeah, and marinating's good. I like to stay busy. I like to have multiple calls on attention, and I think throughout COVID, it it's uncomfortable. Like silence is uncomfortable for me. If I'm alone in my apartment and making coffee, like I'm listening to your podcast, I'm listening to an audiobook. I've got something else on the go, and I think um, before I figure out what that big thing is, the small day to day is noticing, am I multitasking or monotasking? Am I being present in the moment, or am I being distracted by my phone, or trying to fill empty space?
Hmm.
So asking myself, how am I feeling comfortable with silence, with myself? How am I letting my mind kind of wander, get back to a bit of play, experience, deeply feel emotions rather than just cognitively think them through?
Mm.
So that's some of the work that I'm doing right now. Um, but I'm hoping that some of the learnings from that can translate into something else.
Mm. Yeah, something that you said just really resonated with me because I had this thought this morning as I was getting ready. And I was listening to a podcast, and it was a ritual podcast. And I went to dry my hair, and I was like, oh, when I'm drying my hair, I won't be able to listen to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned off the podcast, but then I went onto YouTube and I found a clip of something that I could at least watch while
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
was drying my hair. And I remember thinking, why am I doing this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why am I trying to find something else to like fill in the podcast spot because I can't hear it, but I
Mm-hmm.
still need to see something?
Yeah.
And it made me reflect on mid-February. I did my first um, medicine ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a psychedelic called 5-MeO DMT, and it was a very transformative experience. We can get into that in some
Yeah.
other conversation. But one of the things that they had us do was in the week leading up to it, they asked that we lessened the amount of music we listened to,
Mm.
the podcasts, the videos. And so I remember for that week, I was just getting ready in the morning in silence.
Yeah.
And I do remember thinking, gosh, this is so nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I resonate deeply with what you're saying about just some silence, is okay.
Oh, I mean, I still find it so uncomfortable, and I don't realize how uncomfortable I find it until I'm just passively searching for something to turn on, and I'm like, what are you doing? Hey, just like chill. You
Mhm.
can you can peel a banana without having to listen to the daily. This is okay.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And to get back into design,
Mm-hmm.
um, what's exciting you right now that you're seeing out there in terms of design? What's emerging that you feel like you can share for
Yeah.
others to know about?
Um it seems like right now, and maybe this is just like another trend or wave, but it seems like in a post-COVID world where there's a lot of emphasis on like service design or designing services. And I'm seeing a lot more inquiries about that. Folks are kind of like, maybe it feels like the hot topic right now. Um, and there's a whole bunch of different things like happening within like the design space. I think that service design is great, but what I love that it like bridges into is more questions around inclusive design and accessible design, and how are we creating experiences that are truly holistic for humans, not just some humans. So
Mm.
we're getting we're getting clients and businesses who are more interested in like diverse user research, and are really wanting to ensure that they're not just meeting accessibility standards, but they're surpassing them. And um, and that is like, oh, okay, this is like starting to step into that like more equitable, more transformative space for everyone. So I'm excited when I get to partner on projects that like have an emphasis like that. And in our practice, that's something that we put a lot of emphasis on as well. So when we're recruiting folks, really wanting to make sure that the folks that we're talking to are representative of like the user base that our clients are working with, and not just the easy to access user base, but it's like truly representative of like that whole community. So it's not always the easiest path, but it's the right path. It's a good path. And often, even though it can sometimes be overlooked, it often brings forward insights that do affect the bottom line, that do affect how a service is performed or used or interacted with in a really positive way. Because you often find if you're designing for folks who are like underserved or the minority, it actually is providing insights that serve everyone and uplifts the whole experience for every user. So that's what's feeling really encouraging, that there's less of a fight for that space now. There still is a bit of a fight, but there's less of it, and it takes less convincing. And it's like, okay, we can put this into a contract. Awesome. I'm glad that I don't have to rationalize this with a client for, back and forth just to get some budget for it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what are some recent insights that you've come across in this kind of accessibility design area that you're like, wow, I wouldn't have known that.
Oh gosh. I think this is more me. I feel still quite like new to this space, or specifically when it comes to inclusive design, and like there's so much depth that could be stepped into there. I think just learning about some of the different tools that folks use to interact with products or websites or apps, and how even within like user research, some of the evaluative tools, whether it's like a survey or I don't know, some tool that we're using as part of our user research, how it's like, oh, actually this tool is inaccessible and we need to figure out a workaround for this particular tool. And how even though the space is like really trying to push more for like an equitable space when it comes to engaging with audience members and users, there's still some scrappy barriers that we need to get over and find solutions for. So because often if it's not us coming to the table with a solution or an approach that is mindful of what that individual's bringing to us, it's putting the onus on them to, oh, can you figure out how to show us your screen even though you're using a screen reader, or and ultimately, like, we want that research practice to be something that is like easy, straightforward, that we can bring to them and not have them have to kind of like coach us through it in order to give, insights from their perspective.
It's like not causing them to labor on your behalf.
Yeah, exactly. But every opportunity, I mean, there's new learnings with every single engagement that we get to do. And it's about paying attention to that and some of that constant refinement to make sure that we're able to meet those needs when we encounter them. And exactly like you said, not cause additional labor that's unnecessary.
Yeah, they always say that with like kind of learning about, other cultures and how they operate is like, you don't make them labor for your education.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, just being mindful of that and not doing that and doing your own homework.
100%. And I mean, I say this as like a, like white gay man with like immense privilege throughout my entire life. And there's a lot of learning that I'm still doing on a regular basis too.
Yeah. I mean, that's being human. Like constant works in progress. So, yeah, I also remember you saying in our pre-chat before today
Mm-hmm.
that you were, as you were reflecting, you were also reflecting on good boundaries and protecting your energy. I'd love to hear more about this.
Oh, totally. I, being a people person, being someone who is like motivated by like the friends in my life, is typically up for like a fun experience or meeting new folks. Um, I my tendency is to definitely like stretch myself thin. Um, I made a rule a couple of years ago where if I start a day with a to-do list, let's say it's like a weekend and it's like, okay, I want to do the grouse grind. I'm going to go grab some groceries. I'm going to pop over to Mech. I'm going to do basically like make this list. I want to end at Third Beach. Um, I'm allowed to make it, but then I immediately have to cut it in half and move half of those tasks to the other day because that half of that list is actually going to be a full day, and it's going to allow me to like be present in those activities rather than having more of a, I mean, gluttonous mentality for experience and just like thinking about the next thing when I'm currently doing one thing. So um that is lifelong learning for me because I like a lot of things and I like to step into new stuff all the time. But it comes back to like really trying to be present with the thing that I'm doing in the moment. And that's the only way that I'm going to actually feel like a sense of fullness from that. I know I'm using like gluttony and fullness, but um, if I'm constantly just eating experiences, then I'm not taking time to savor them. I'm not taking time to like digest them fully. Whereas if I can, you know, be in the moment, really take in every aspect of what I'm doing, then um, I'll actually remember it. I might learn something from it. There might be some aha moment that comes out of it. And I won't get that if I'm just
Checking
barely
things off.
exactly and
Yeah.
barreling forward into the next thing.
Do you think that that's more, having this list of things to do and trying to check them off? Does it have anything to do with like not feeling like you don't have enough time? Like just need to do it all in this amount of time?
I mean, kind of. I mean, I think something I've been reflecting on too is just how life can feel a bit like survival. Um, and for some that feels like such an understatement, but I don't know. As I get older, I'm like crankier towards capitalism, and I'm like, this system is broken, and I was born into it, and I reject it, but I'm a part of it, and how do I resolve that? But yeah, thinking through that, and I was like, oh, I like if I don't feed myself, I don't eat. If I don't wash my clothes, I don't. Then none of this, nothing happens unless I like get up and do it. So I do think like time feels precious. I did I did have a job at one point that was 4 days a week, and I will say, y'all, the 4 day work week is amazing. It is so life giving. You do all of your laundry on Friday, and then you truly have a few days to rest and
Yeah.
get out into nature and like have like a Sabbath. But yeah, it does feel like time is just one of like the most precious things, and I'm like, how do I optimize this? But then how do I optimize it in a way that doesn't completely throttle my bank account and then makes it unlivable for Vancouver?
Yeah. Or how do you, not think of time as something that's like scarce, like even though it is,
Mm-hmm.
but just going into it with that scarcity mindset already just kind of puts you in this weird relationship with it.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you said scarcity mindset because I was actually journaling earlier this week and I was like, right now, I've I've kind of fallen into a bit of a scarcity mindset and I don't know why. And it's part of some of that unpacking of post COVID um and yeah, I've worked with a coach sometimes and I'm going to be meeting with them later this week. But like my question is like, hey, I'm in this space. I don't know exactly how I got here, but I am having like things feel tight. And I haven't always felt this way. Logically, I know that it's not this way, but everything the way that, my body is feeling or things that are like coming up for me, it's like, oh yeah, it feels a bit scarce right now.
Yeah. I wonder. Maybe I'll share something from
Mm-hmm.
a something that I had been feeling personally. For the last month, I'd been feeling like, wow, I've just got so much on the go, like
Mm-hmm.
doing all these things, all these events, and yeah, feeling like time was really, really tight.
Mm-hmm.
And this last weekend, I decided that I was going to have a very quiet weekend because I don't mind being alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as much as I love people,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I'm truly an introvert. So, in order to regenerate, I need that quiet time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, other than doing a private sound bath for a client out in Deep Cove, I had a very, very quiet weekend. And I just read and just did my own thing.
Yeah.
And I feel so good right now. And I wonder if it's because I just created space.
Oh, absolutely.
I just made the decision to give that back to myself where
Mm.
it was sort of getting tight for me.
Yeah, and it sounds too, you created space, but you like made an intention around what that space was going to be for you. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that feels a bit of like the unlocking for me where I don't know, you'll have a Saturday and I'm like, I rested, but if your mind is still thinking about, but I didn't do this, like it still is maybe in a bit of achievement mode.
Yeah.
And so learning how to release yourself of that or like put that away for a time and then be able to come back to it truly rested, truly haven't taken that space.
Yeah.
I mean, I should like need to go to one of your sound baths because that also sounds really
Yeah,
rejuvenating.
they're all kinds of things. It's definitely rejuvenating, and it could also be for some people. It's like, wow, I did not know it was going to be that intense. I
Mhm.
did not know that was hidden deep inside me.
Oh yeah,
So it's yeah. I mean, I would love to have you in sometime. So
100%.
yeah, for sure. Well, I feel like I have just a few more questions.
Hmm.
Um, the one question that I have, second to last, is looking back at your 37 years, do you
Yeah,
feel proud of where you're at?
yeah. Oh, proud. Um, I I don't know if I want to say the word proud. I sure. That feels like a very classic answer. Sure. Um, I think I feel grateful. Um, I mean, going back to the very beginning, it's like I I feel so blessed by like my parents and the household I grew up in. They're so generous, and I think that they've instilled a lot of things in me that I was able like to carry forward in life. And I wouldn't. I look back and I'm like, okay, if I've like kind of honored them in terms of how I'm showing up in the world, then I'm feeling good about that. Haven't always gotten it right, but yeah, I think I'm feeling good.
Mm,
And I think too, looking around me and seeing like the friends in my life and the community that I get to like participate in and be a part of, that's the thing that feels really life-giving, and that's what I'm proud of. Like it's always maybe my sure is coming from a space of always able to like be the champion of other people before myself, but
mm,
I find that so much easier.
mm.
But but yeah, I think so. Sure.
And my last question that I ask everybody,
Mhm.
with what you do, what is it that you want to leave behind in the world?
Hmm. I think I think probably it's how I made people feel and what how did I make them feel? How did I create space for people? Um how did I yeah, I think just the posture that I held with folks, and again, like coming back to like a learning, but like trying to be present with them, trying to actively listen, trying to like really connect with another individual. I feel like it's like in those small moments that are like the most powerful. It's like, sure, Zach, I could do a bunch of things, but it's like, it's more about that one-on-one connection. And whether that's a longtime friend or whether that is a new acquaintance that you meet once, and maybe you have an impact on that individual. So I hope that there's some lingering essence.
Well, you do definitely have a lingering essence. And it's a really lovely one. And so you're doing it already.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you've come into my sphere. Thank you, Amanda Lee Smith.
Yeah. Oh, Amanda, thank you so much for bringing me into my life.
Yeah, this was a lovely, wonderful conversation. I definitely can't wait for more offline, online, wherever. And yes, come in for a sound bath. Let's get you all
Absolutely
vibed out.
I cannot wait to get vibed out. This has been such a vibe. So more vibes with May. Absolutely.
Yes.
And yeah, huge thank you. This has been so fun, and you've made this experience really well, you set me at ease, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As always, thank you for being here and for listening. To learn more about today's guest, visit the episode page for show notes and links on wearethecraft.com. You can find the entire podcast archive here or explore more conversations with past guests on Spotify and Apple. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on these platforms, including YouTube, to get notified when new episodes drop. Any likes and shares on social media are deeply appreciated too. Sound and audio engineering for the show are by Andrew and Jeba Gaspis. All guest portraits and images are by Juno Kim. Appreciate you all, and see you again soon.